Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode. Stop it, Matthew. Episode 32 of the Rock Podcast. For those about to pod, we salute you. In this episode 32, just in case you missed it for all my laughing, we are concentrating on my year on rock in 1996. We will be going through our usual features of what's happening in the news or what's caught your eyebrow. You haven't used that for a while.
No.
You haven't? We will go through hidden gems, which I am alleged is the most important part of the show.
Absolutely.
And we'll talk about gigs. And some people have been off rocking at the weekend down in Castle Donington. But before we go any further, welcome to my co-host, Mr. Matt Rogers. How are you, buddy?
Hello. Yes, hello, Brian. Nice to see you. I haven't spoken to you since we were in Edinburgh a few weeks ago.
I thought you'd started your own podcast without me.
Well, I did. So, as you know, well, I didn't start it. I kept it going. So we got, for those about to line dance, the country podcast, of course. We got, for those about to pop, the pop podcast, sister, lots of family, growing family. No other podcast, Brian. I haven't got time.
No.
I haven't got time.
I know.
Right. So,
rocking every night, rolling every day, as they say.
That's right. I thought you were going to say, what's caught your eyebrow? That'd be painful, wouldn't it? Catching your eyebrow in something. Do you ever do that thing when you're at school and get a called a bulldog clip? And like when you're a bit bored, it's just like clip it to various parts of like your ear, eyebrow, the lip. You ever done that?
No.
I wouldn't. It's very painful.
Not that I would own up to it on a public podcast.
I'm not saying I ever did it, of course. It just reminded me that I took you down memory lane.
Okay.
Anyway, so Brian, what on that subject? Therefore, what has caught your eye? Right. I think that's got legs. That one, don't you? We need to rekindle that one.
Yeah.
What's caught your eyebrow? Hashtag what's caught your eyebrow?
And I should maybe say what's under your hat, Matt.
Hey, we're cooking now, aren't we? It's taken us 32 episodes. Now those little kind of catchphrases are coming thick and fast now, aren't they?
They are. We'll just be trending so much on.
Absolutely.
So we'll start off. Sad news. At the start of the month, Alec John Such, who was the original bass player in Bon Jovi, passed away. 70 years of age, 5th of June this year. Alec, amazing bass player, a great singer, and all of the tributes that have come in for Alec. He's the one that kind of brought the band together. He brought Richie Sambora to the band, and in that whole New Jersey scene, Alec was kind of one of the known guys of the music scene. So really sad. Loved the band. Moved away from the music scene after he left the band. I think he left around about sort of the These Days time, maybe a little bit beforehand. Yeah. But still, I think he had his time in the sun with Bon Jovi, and then he just retired. So sad. I've been listening and going back to some of the old stuff around the Slippery and the New Jersey period, and even Keep the Faith is a great album. So yeah, sad loss.
Yeah, indeed. You forget about, obviously with Bon Jovi, the focus was always on John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora, of course. But yeah, that rhythm section of Alec John Such and Tico Torres and of course David Bryan on the keyboards. Yeah, it was a great set of musicians and of course famous for several kind of iconic bass lines. The introduction to Keep the Faith, of course, the song and Star Living on a Prayer and so on. Yeah, so yeah, shame really. Absolutely. So, and again, as we've said often, 70, by modern standards doesn't seem that old, of course, but sad loss indeed.
Yeah, and just announced this week in the UK for our listeners in the UK and the US, the Foo Fighters and the Hawkins family have announced two massive gigs, one in Los Angeles and one in London in September to celebrate Taylor Hawkins. So Tickets go on sale in the UK on Friday, 17th of June. Good luck if you're going to be trying for tickets. I know I'm going to be trying hard. And a nice touch by the band as well too. There's a pre-sale for all of the fans who didn't get a chance to see the band, and the European tour was cancelled. So anybody who was trying to get tickets who missed the shows that were obviously cancelled after Taylor's passing, they're getting a first crack of the whip at the tickets.
That's nice.
So that's kind of nice.
As you say, they go on sale probably 10 o'clock on the 17th and will be sold out by about 5 past.
Yes.
I imagine. But could you do me a favour? Could you get me one, please? Save me trying.
Oh, thanks. No pressure. No, as you say, good tribute to the great man. And it'd be interesting to see who was in the band, of course. As we know, Dave and the rest of Foo Fighters have got friends in high places. So, it could be good. Whoever gets a ticket will be in for a treat. And as you said, a tribute to the late, great Taylor Hawkins, of course. Yeah. Just one little story I wanted to recap. As it were. I like to have a bit of continuity between the episodes. So this is a story we talked about in episode 1. No, I'm joking. This was a story we talked about a few episodes ago. I can't remember which one it was. But you remember when Kurt Cobain's guitar from the Smells Like Teen Spirit video went up for sale, or was poised to go up for sale? And if you recall, the estimate, it was estimated as being sold for between $400,000 and $600,000, which even by your standards, Brian, that is a lot to pay for a guitar. It is. Just a little bit over my price range.
Indeed. It's a 1969 Fender, it is, of course, a 1969 Fender competition Mustang in Lake Placid blue. And everyone will picture that guitar from that iconic video. Anyway, it sold eventually in New York a couple of weeks ago. And it's at Julian's Auctions.
Okay.
And it sold for $4.5 million.
And who says that there's an economic crisis going on in the world, Matthew?
Absolutely. Plus auctioneer's commission as well, of course. $4.5 million. Did you buy it? It wasn't you, was it?
No, but I have an interesting tale about auctions in a moment.
Do you? Okay. Anyway, we don't know who's bought it, but there you go. I thought I'd just finish off that story. $4.5 million for a guitar. I mean, we've said it before, but the world's got a bit bad, hasn't it, really?
I hope it gets played. I think any instrument that's famous, if I had a famous instrument by any artist, I would want to have it and I'd want to play it. I just hope it doesn't go into a museum or one of these glass cabinets and never gets played.
Yeah, would you play it though? I'm not sure I would.
I would.
Because
I'm not sure I would take. Not sure I would take it down to the pub and do cover versions of it. But it would be played. It would be, I would play it. It's auctions wise.
Yes.
A few months ago, I got thrown up a message on Facebook that the estate of Gary Moore was selling off lots. They've done 3 lots. I'm not sure if it was Sotheby's or whichever auction house it was. But
Christie's is the other one, isn't it?
Maybe Christie's. But they were selling off lots of Gary's guitars, amplifiers, echo boxes, and even pedals. And I did look at the brochure, Matt, and I thought about it. And then I read the small print. So you'll see the price. And then when you do all of the add-ons and the buyer's premiums and the taxes, for a guitar that would be, say, up for auction or for 10 grand, by the time you have it in your hand and you've paid it, you're paying the neck of 20 grand with all of the add-ons. It's like a football player. Pay your transfer fee and then all the add-ons. So I did look, and I even looked at just buying a pedal, one of Gary Moore's pedals, but I decided against it.
Yeah,
so,
no, shame. Yeah, it'd be nice to own something like that, wouldn't it? Especially if you're a guitar, fanatic, which you are, of course, as we know, and a Gary Moore fan.
Exactly. And talking of Gary Moore fans,
Yes.
Somebody who we haven't mentioned in the show for some time. Sir Vivian of Campbell.
Yes, indeed. The great man.
The great man
Indeed.
himself. The erstwhile pop band, or his main gig, his main meal ticket, Def Leppard have just released Diamond Star Halos, their new album. It is absolutely tremendous. It is my hot runner for my album of the year, obviously before the King's X album comes out. But it is just an belting album. First track, Take What You Want. Kick was the single that was getting a lot of play on Planet Rock and rock stations. Got to number 4 in the UK charts, sold well. They played the Whiskey A Go Go to launch things in the States. The band are sounding. Joe Elliott was sounding. It's the first time he sang in 2 years. Sounding fantastic. They're looking as if they're in good nick for the stadium tour with Motley Crue and Poison and Joan Jett. So for our US listeners, you are in for a fabulous stadium tour when Def Leppard. So the band were just sounding phenomenal, and it's for an album to be made a bit like you and me. They've done it on computers with a garage band and Logic, and Vivian Campbell's just learned to stick his guitar into a computer, and they've just made a fantastic sounding album. So go check out Diamond Star Halos, the new Def Leppard album. It's fab.
Yeah. That is good. No, I was listening to it today, funnily enough. Funny you should mention it. I tell you what I've also been listening to as well, I think it's been out a little while now, is the most recent album by Thunder called Dopamine. In the same vein, I certainly think it's going to be one of my contenders for the album of this year. Well worth a listen. It's quite a long album. I think it's a double.
It's a double album, yeah.
Double vinyl album.
Yeah.
Very old school. And when you think it comes relatively hot on the heels of All the Right Noises, which was, I think, released at the beginning of 2021. We talked about it, I think.
Yeah.
But as Danny Bose said, the singer of Thunder, he's pleased to be back out on the road, because he spent a lot of time in the studio in the last couple of years, and you can understand why. But I tell you what struck me though, Brian, was just the pure quality of the songs throughout, and indeed combined with All the Right Noises. A lot of credit should go to the main songwriter Luke Morley, who's done a fantastic job and continues to be, hugely prolific in terms of his creative side. So check it out. The most recent album by Thunder called Dopamine, which moves us on nicely. Talking of Def Leppard, by the way. So they, along with many others, have at least had jumped on the bandwagon, but I won't. They have now started to market their own brand of gin.
They have.
Or gins, I should say. My wife would be very pleased about that. They're called, or they're going to be called Animal and Rocket, which are strange names for gin.
I thought so too, yes.
Sound like they should be some sort of homebrew, don't they? Or some sort of, moonshine or scrumpy or something. Created by Master Blender. You've got to be careful as you say that one. Created by Master Blender Daniel Henriksson and from a Swedish producer called Brands for Fans. I like that. Yeah, I'm going to try it. I don't mind a drop of gin. Mother's Ruin.
I'm a recent convert to gin. I do.
Oh, you know.
Like my gin. Yeah, I am indeed. Yes. Yeah, we should start rolling off some names of gins in the hope that we might get sponsored by them.
That's right.
Some product placement for gin.
That's right. I just drink it if it's nice. Yeah. Gordon's is my favourite, but that's probably the end of the bottom end of the spectrum. Exactly. But anyway, we digress. This is not
for those about to gin.
For those about to drink Mother's Ruin, that sister podcast, which is still on the drawing board, but I think it's got legs. Anyway, so yes, Def Leppard branching out into alcohol, which is nice. Yeah. Look forward to that.
Yeah. And still, the continuity between these items, Matt, and we genuinely haven't prepared this, but a friend of Def Leppard's and somebody who's worked with Joe Elliott, I think Joe Elliott produced one of Ricky Warwick's solo albums. How They Got to Be Friends is
Big mates.
The new single from Black Star Riders is out. It was released this week. It's a track called Better Than Saturday. And Joe Elliott is on backing vocals. Backing vocals.
Why
Why? Not that Ricky Warwick... Why would I do a Northeastern accent for somebody from Northern Ireland? I should be doing better than Saturday.
Yeah.
So the new single is out. New album's out next year called Wrong Side of Paradise. Comes out in January 2023. The tour looks really good. The tour has got Phil Campbell and his sons, that we won't say the full title. And Michael Monroe, ex of Hanoi Rocks. So the last time I saw him, he was climbing up some scaffolding at High Voltage Festival.
That's right.
If you remember,
That's right.
at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon before I got sunstroke.
That's right.
But interestingly, they're without Black Star Riders are without a guitarist. The guitarist Christian he's decided to focus on his other gig with Corey Taylor. So Christian's left Black Star Riders. So Scott Gorham and Jimmy DeGrasso are coming back in to do the 10th anniversary of Black Star Riders. So that's one for the diary for 23, Matt. Black Star Riders with Phil Campbell and Mike Monroe. And the single's pretty good. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, it's good bill, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Talking of bills, of course, these segues are just getting better and better, aren't they? So I went to Download this weekend, along with many other people. Of course, plenty of friends of ours were there. Hello to you if you were there. And hope you enjoyed it. Went for Saturday. The bill for Saturday was fantastic. Headlined by the mighty Iron Maiden. I think you get to a certain status when you can be called the mighty.
Yes.
The mighty Judas Priest. The mighty Iron Maiden headline. We'll come on to them in a minute. Saw Those Damn Crows, who were on the main stage. They were fantastic. And talked to a friend of mine, Nick, who was with me, and you could tell they were just beside themselves with excitement. And I can understand that, because I've said before, many years ago, 4 years ago only, they were opening Rambling Man Fair on the little kind of, rising band stage. And now, 4 years later, they are on the main stage at Download in front of probably, I think I've heard figures of between 60 and 90,000.
Yeah, 80,000. Yeah.
Yeah, tremendous. The Excellent Shinedown were there. Just fantastic. I mean, they're out in the UK this autumn. As are Monster Truck. Monster Truck were also on the bill this weekend. They were fantastic.
I love Monster Truck. Their riffs are great. They
gave it everything. Yeah. And for a band by their own admission that hadn't been on tour hadn't played gigs for obviously a couple of years, 2.5 years, they put in a hell of a show.
Yeah.
They were good. Saw Megadeth for the first time. Fantastic. Can't be a bit of Megadeth. And we'll pick a few songs out from their set to put on the old playlist, Brian. Black Label Society, fronted by the larger than life Zakk Wylde, of course.
How were they? How were Black Label Society? Yeah.
Yeah. To be fair, I did combine seeing them with seeing Mastodon and Megadeth, but they were good. He gives it everything, Zakk Wylde, and the fans thought he was good. And then, of course, Iron Maiden, who played a few songs off the new album Senjutsu, including the title song, and then just basically, went through their, as is often said, a career-spanning set. And when you consider that the first album was 1980, I mean, the show they put on was just colossal, fantastic. Favorite songs to me, Revelations was great. Flight of Icarus was fantastic. Just a couple of Blaze Bayley era songs. Sign of the Cross.
Klansman was, the
Klansman but took on, with all due respect to Blaze, took on a fantastic sort of different image, let's say, with Bruce Dickinson singing, and Bruce himself, his voice was just phenomenal. I mean, for someone who's in his 60s, he's had cancer, the throat and head, just sounding fantastic. And as a band, they sounded just huge. So if you get a chance to see Iron Maiden, hopefully they'll be extending the Legacy of the Beast tour. In fact, go and see all those bands that we just mentioned. They were all just fantastic. It was just a brilliant day. The weather was great, and really good. But one of the things we were talking about when we were there, Brian, is something I wanted to just chat to you about. So Kiss were there on the Kiss were there on their farewell tour, I should say. And Aerosmith have headlined Download in the last few years, 2017 to be precise, who were on their last tour. It made us think about who are the headliners coming up in the next couple of years, particularly next year when it's going to be a 4-night 20th anniversary Download. And then similarly, who are the headliners of the future, 5-10 years down the line? And it makes for an interesting discussion. I'm interested to get a sense of who you think the headliners are likely to be next year, but more interestingly, who you think are the headliners of tomorrow.
Let's do the easy one first. Let's do who I think the contenders are and why I'm going to pick some bands for 2023. Download, and with it being the 4 nights, it's obviously the 20th anniversary of Download. Mm-hmm. So I have given this a little bit of thought.
Have you?
I have indeed.
Makes a change.
It has. So I'm gonna go with some, let's call them safe recycling headliners. So within Download, if you think about how many times Maiden have actually played Download, the last time I was at Download, Iron Maiden played in 2016 on the Book of Souls tour. So they've obviously got a great relationship with Andy, and they've obviously they love to play Donington. So it got me thinking about bands that really go down well at Donington, and it's a bit of a spiritual home. So the first band, now we need to decide on our bands, which I haven't decided which nights they're going to play yet, and I think that's really important. So first bands, which I think are a shoo-in for next year, is number one is Metallica.
Yep.
Metallica are a shoo-in. My reasons for that is they have a new album due out autumn this year, potentially. I think they're in pre-production now. So they'll have a new album coming out and then they'll be touring it. Metallica are I'm not going to say a shoo-in because they're big enough to do their own festival. This is the thing. So I would say Metallica, another band, because Download is so genre wide, it's not just a heavy metal. I'm going to go with My Chemical Romance.
Really?
They're a band that's always been relatively high up on the bill, and I think they have headlined in earlier years. Another band, so the other two band, the other band, I think Def Leppard, and I'm kind of going Def Leppard / Motley Crue, because if they do the stadium tour in the US this summer, I think Def Leppard and Motley Crue, there's a possibility that they'll come across, and Def Leppard have played Download a few times, so I could see them coming back. And then the final one, I am going to go with Slipknot.
Yeah, possible. Absolutely.
Yeah, new album out this year, and again, Andy Coppin. I would love to say Van Halen. I think if you were to ask Andy Coppin, who's obviously the promoter and the man behind Download, he has been. If you were to say who does he always ask to get onto Download, he always asking Van Halen, and he was always trying to get Foo Fighters as well.
That's right.
So
and Pearl Jam, none of whom are keen to do Download because of the association with it being more sort of heavy metal.
Exactly. There's my 4. Just kind of.
Not bad.
Yeah.
You missed a big one out though, to be fair.
I know. But the thing is, I had to pick 4, or I could pick 11.
And I don't mean Diamond Head. So I mean, I think there's a lot of people kind of keeping their fingers crossed for a possible AC/DC headline, which would I think just be the icing on the cake. 20 years of Download, Probably one of the last shows AC/DC will see in this country, will play in this country, and or indeed in Europe. Could be huge. So fingers crossed. Put your fingers crossed, Brian, please.
I specifically didn't put AC/DC down for download because I think if AC/DC play, they'll play more than one show. I think they would do like 2 nights at Wembley, maybe a night in Hampden. I think they would play maybe 4 or 5 football stadiums.
Yeah, maybe.
Rather than the exclusive download show.
Yeah, you might be right. I would, of course, prefer it to just play London on their UK tour. But that's just my perverse view of the world.
Exactly.
So, yeah, possibly AC/DC. I'd like to see Judas Priest headline. That'd be great. I love Priest.
Yeah.
And they've been a bit sort of lacking in appearances in this country for a few years. System of Down, of course, are always a favourite at download. And as you said, they would kind of like balance the books in terms of that kind of more modern, although they've been going a long time. Not as long as Priest and AC/DC, of course. Other notable mentions, maybe Alice Cooper would be a good Friday night headliner or even Thursday night headliner. Kind of obviously, classic rock and celebrating many, many years in the business, of course, but still going strong. Recently toured the UK with the Cult. So, the list goes on. Green Day and Rammstein, of course. Scorpions, maybe. That's a long shot. We shall see, of course.
If Download 2023 hasn't got 4 of those bands that we've discussed and had a chat about, I'd be very, very surprised. However, as you said at the start of this segment, Matt, it's where are the headliners of tomorrow? Who's going to have that career spanning catalogue like Iron Maiden?
Yeah. It's a good question, but I think there are a lot of contenders, frankly.
Okay.
Bands that are on the up, and be interested to get your views on some of them. I think an obvious one is Ghost.
I'd agree with that.
In the last few years, they have come on hugely, leaps and bounds, and their stage show is enormous and quite a spectacle. So I think certainly if they're not on the bill next year as a headline, they certainly will be in years to come. There are others that are, I think, very, very strong contenders. We talked a lot about Greta Van Fleet, who I think, a couple of decent albums under their belt, and then I'm talking the next few years, 5 years, 10 years down the track. If they shed themselves of the sort of Led Zeppelin sound-alike kind of moniker, which they started to do, of course, with the last album, Battle at Garden's Gate, which I still listen to. I think it's a fantastic album. I think they certainly will continue to develop as a band. Mammoth WVH, I think, if Wolfgang goes on, Wolfgang Van Halen goes on, builds upon his excellent debut album, then again, I think they could be contenders for certainly a huge career and potential headliners at Download, indeed other festivals of the future.
Yeah. There's and somebody who we've talked about, and who I think has got an amazing back catalogue, and feel free to shoot me down if you think they're a band that doesn't merit it. Is Thunder?
Oh yeah.
I think with Download at Castle Donington, we always like to give a shout out to our own. It's Iron Maiden's an English British band, and they get wildly supported. And below Maiden, and that's why I think Judas Priest is a good shout. But again, that's legacy bands.
Yeah.
Thunder have actually, to me, that would it be a risk to have Thunder as a headliner?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think they're probably they would have done it by now if they were going to, because they're. But you never know, do you?
You talked about we talked about the Scorpions, but there are big bands like Sabaton, Amon Amarth. There's the kind of the more spectacular, the bands that play it Wacken, and where they've got a massive stage. You're seeing a lot of those. There's a lot more groundswell support for that type of genre of power metal, Hammerfall, and all these kind of bands. A lot. There's. I do think the Rammstein industrial aspect of what bands bring in, and there's an interesting band who I don't know that much about, but I, as a headliner of the future, is a band called Parkway Drive from Australia. They're metalcore, as they say. They have headlined download festivals in Europe, certainly in the likes of France and in Germany. So I can see if they're able to play and headline festivals in Europe, then it's a stepping stone to coming across and being able to be a headliner. But Alter Bridge, a band who I'm getting, you'll smile at this, a band that I'm getting into now is Hailstorm.
Oh, yeah.
I just see, if they keep going in the trajectory that they are for good rockin' music, wouldn't it be fantastic to have a band like Hailstorm? Here's a headline for the future for a band, for a package that we saw 5-10 years ago. Alter Bridge, Hailstorm, and Shinedown. There are three good future headliners for Donington.
Yeah. Certainly, absolutely. I would agree on all three of those, particularly Shinedown. Having seen them at the weekend and the sort of scale of the show they put on and the songs, I think a lot of it is to do with not only the production, as we've said many, many times, it's ultimately about the songs. You have the greatest production ever. You can have bombs going off and, trapezes and, rising drum kits and so on. But if you haven't got the songs, you haven't got the songs.
Yeah.
And I think certainly Shinedown have got a fantastic back catalogue.
Yeah.
And have made their way steadily up the bill at Download and indeed other festivals, of course. So I certainly would love to see Shinedown. It's just about to start their first arena tour in Britain. Well, later this year, of course.
Yeah, that's right.
A couple of others that I think when people listen to this podcast in a few years' time, when we're at episode 532, they will think he was a clairvoyant, that Rogers.
The prophet.
The prophet Rogers. And that he suggested that the Struts would be headlining Download at some point. And
he's
also,
a great frontman. He is a phenomenal frontman. He really is.
Indeed. And he also suggested that Dirty Honey would be on the roster for headlining Download in the late 2020s. What a prophet that man was.
Okay.
Phenomenal. No, I think seriously, those two bands are, I got a bit carried away then, wasn't I? Those two bands are certainly on the rise, and certainly Dirty Honey were very, very low down the bill this weekend at Download, but I could see them rising steadily up. And indeed, the Struts are very much in that kind of, they've been likened, of course, to Queen, certainly from a lead singer perspective in terms of his persona. And, who knows where they'll end up. Of course, it does come back to they need to keep building on their good start, good albums, tours, building up a fan base and so on and so forth. So, but I can see those bands moving up the bill in future. And I mentioned them at the outset, Those Damn Crows as well. New album coming out very soon. Hopefully it's as good, if not better, than their first two albums. And again, as a band and as a spectacle, certainly they've got the confidence and the chops to go onwards and upwards. And as I say, their stock has risen in the last few years. So who knows? It's interesting to speculate, of course, and we shall see in future if we're right or if we're wrong.
Exactly.
Brian. And of course, we'd be very interested to hear from how many listeners now is it, Brian?
13.
Still 13, is it? Okay. We'd be interested to hear from our listeners what your thoughts are on future headliners, future mega bands. So that brings us on to my year in rock, Brian. Do you remember how it goes?
I do indeed. We pick a year and we frantically, 5 minutes before the show, go, "Ooh."
It's true, exactly how it happens. Last time you gave me 1996.
I did indeed.
26 years ago.
Exactly.
Or if you're listening to this in 4 years' time, 30 years ago. 1996. I've given up asking you how old you were, whether you're at university. Of course, you were at university, I'm sure, in 1996. I wasn't. But it was a funny year, 1996. I look back at it, and albums-wise, it was kind of slim pickings, really, because and I'll come on to why in a minute. There's sort of the underlying theme, but a few albums stood out for me. Test for Echo by Rush came out that year. Good album, Test for Echo. And sometimes when you sort of think of an album and you can picture where you were or what you were doing. Mm-hmm. And I think it was in the early days of having a CD player in my car. Mid-90s, it's a long time ago. And CD players in your car. I mean, that was a thing. That was a new thing, wasn't it?
Yes.
And we've moved on from that now. I mean, it's all about Bluetooth and all the rest of it. But yeah, I had a CD player in my car. Have I mentioned that? I think I did.
Yeah, Matt, but people can now sit in the front seat of my car, because what was once filled with cassettes was then substituted in 1996 with a whole bunch of CDs. Now that we're streaming, right. I don't need to have. People can sit in my car.
That's right. And do you remember we started with the one in, one out CD, and then it was like the Holy Grail was the 5 CD changer in the boot.
Never had one.
Which is, well, I did, and it was very annoying because you'd play the CDs, and then you'd have to sort of pull over onto the hard shoulder on the M25 if you wanted to change. No, don't do that, boys and girls. If you're lazy like me, you end up with the same 5 CDs in there for months. Yeah. Anyway, so that was 1996. Good album, Test for Echo. Well worth checking out. Mm-hmm. Similarly, and I've talked about this band once or twice, Hootie and the Blowfish brought out Fairweather Johnson, which is a good album. A follow-up to their phenomenally successful Crack for Review, which came out a couple of years before. Uh-huh. And well worth a listen. Good songs on it. Sad Caper, Tucker's Town, Be the One, to name but a few. And that was my period of being a bit more sort of mellow in terms of my taste in rock, let's say. In fact, I went to see a Hootie and the Blowfish that year, and while they were playing mega arenas in the US, I saw them at the Astoria in Tottenham Court Road in London, which I think probably was their only date on their UK tour, but fair enough.
There was a surprise.
Exactly. Well, we're checking out. I think that's probably my favourite Hootie and the Blowfish album, if I'm honest with you. We mentioned Def Leppard earlier, brought out Slang, which is quite a diversion for them, wasn't it, Brian? Do you remember that album? You're screwing your nose up, so you obviously liked it a lot by the expression on your face.
It was a departure. It was an album that wasn't produced by Mutt Lange. I think it was the first album that they didn't have any involvement with Mutt, and they all decided to be in a studio together and record together with acoustic instruments. Yeah,
I liked it. I thought it was all right.
I'm not a fan.
I like the title track because it's kind of, it's quite sort of its time, isn't it? Trying to get away from the sort of classic rock sound. I really like Work It Out. That's a great song.
It is a very good song.
It's a Vivian Campbell song.
It is a Vivian Campbell song.
By the great man entirely. And of course, All I Want Is Everything. Is also good. I thought it was a good album, right?
It was do you know what? Def Leppard could quite easily have spent the next 25 years after Hysteria bringing out Hysteria Part 2, 3, 4. They kind of did it a little bit with Adrenalize. In the middle of a decade, you've either got movements ending, movements starting, and we're right in the middle of Britpop So for Leopard to just, I suppose, survive and keep their audience and do something different, fair play to them. It's they're not going to sit in their laurels. They're going to try something different. So, yeah.
Well, it certainly did. And then finally, Metallica brought out Load, which I really liked as an album.
So did I.
There's some good stuff on it. And again, I remember playing this in my new car CD player. But yeah, still, I mean, some of the songs on it, I think have certainly stood the test of time. Until It Sleeps is on there. Hero of the Day. Mama Said. Oh, that's an almost
epic
a country song.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So please put all those on the old playlist, Brian.
I certainly will.
And the only other gig I went to that year, before I pass over to you, was Bon Jovi at Milton Keynes Bowl. In fact, I've got a picture of myself at that gig, which I should put on Facebook as a special treat for everyone.
Who was supporting that year?
I haven't changed a bit. Well, it was a bit of a blur for me, to be honest with you. And Blur went on the bill, by the way. Joan Osborne.
Okay. What if God was one of us?
Was one of us. That's right. Gun, of course, the ubiquitous Gun. And that was it, I think. I can't remember anyone else. I think Europe might have been on the bill, possibly. But it was sponsored by Carling. I think it was sponsored by Carling Black Label. And I may have indulged a little bit too much in the old Amber Nectar.
That's what sponsorship does for you kids. If you see Carling Black Label or,
I'm not sure you can get that anymore, can you? Carling Black Label just as well, really, I suppose.
Exactly.
So that was 1996 for me, Brian. An interesting year, which I'll come to as a footnote to your little bit about it.
96, I agree with you on Metallica. I thought that was they moved into classic rock space rather than the thrash metal, which I liked. Albums for me, there's a couple which I'll go over them very quickly.
Yes, please do.
Okay.
I think I know what you're going to. Yeah. I think I know which one you're going to come to.
Okay, let's just get it out of the way quickly. King's X's Ear Candy. Let's move on.
Is that a good album? Because it's not often mentioned in dispatches in terms of the great King's X albums.
King's X often get people talk about the Beatles type harmonies, the vocals with the three. If you listen to Ear Candy, you've got some great tracks on it, such as Mississippi Moon, which is very, very jangle. It's got that kind of Birds jangly guitar. There's the Train, which opened up many, many shows. But probably the most heartfelt King's X song written by Doug Pinnick is on this album. Hence, it's a favourite of mine. It's a song called Picture. It's very, very, it's really, really, it's just a nice melodic album, Matt. It's moved away from Dogman's kind of grungy, and this is quite a melodic album. So it's great singing. And all three members of the band are back singing in the band. It's not just all Doug's vocals, but it's quite a light album, but it's quite nice. Let me move on.
Yeah, please do.
Let me move on. Other albums. Mr. Big released an album called Hey Man, which has got some great tracks on it. Take Cover, which is a live favourite. Very, very good. I would probably say in 1996, Mr. Big's star was waning slightly, but it's still a very, very good album. I'm going to give a shout out to this. Might be a little bit. I might be moving away from rock into Britpop or alternative rock. The Manic Street Preachers released Everything Must Go in 1996, which had a Design for Life on it, which right in the middle of the 90s, phenomenal album. James Dean Bradfield is a fantastic singer. And to me, that's the pinnacle of the Manics, and I was lucky enough to see them live the next year. Sadly, and it's probably MTV Unplugged by Alice in Chains. If you listen to Alice in Chains Unplugged at the MTV studios, that is just a phenomenal album. Lane Staley's vocals along with Jerry Cantrell. It's just fantastic. So those are, as you say, 96, a funny year.
Yeah, and I tell you what the icing on the cake was. So I was reading about Monsters of Rock, the Monsters of Rock Festival at Donington today, and the last Monsters of Rock happened in 1996. And the reason being was that, and I'm reading this kind of verbatim from Wikipedia, is that essentially heavy metal was becoming less popular. Mm-hmm. And as you said, post-grunge, Brit-pop, new metal was all kind of swirling around, the old bands were seen as sort of somewhat old hat, as it were. And there was a lack of headliners. The last Monsters of Rock was co-headlined by Kiss, ironically, who headlined last weekend on their farewell tour, and Ozzy Osbourne. And basically, they called it a day until 2003, which brings us full circle to the 20th anniversary of downloads. So clearly, a kind of a turning point in rock and metal that year. That was 1996. And of course, I need to set you a year, Ryan, for. You remember how this works?
I do indeed. I'm up for it.
Are you?
I've got my pen ready.
I see that.
Pen's ready.
So with that pen, Brian, please write these numbers down.
I will indeed.
2009 is your year in rock for episode 33.
Etched in ink.
Is it?
Etched in ink, 2009.
Have you written it on your hand?
No.
Just as well.
Because it's a permanent marker, Sharpie.
I was going to say, yeah, I was pleased. I saw that. I thought, please don't write on your hand, Brian. Or on your face, so you can see it in the mirror. As a reminder. So that was 1996, 2009. Next time, please, Brian.
Certainly.
So this brings us to everybody. Literally everybody. I was at Download this weekend, as I said to you, and this random guy came up to me. I saw a lot of random guys and ladies there, and this guy comes up to me and says, "Excuse me, I don't know you." I said, "That's true, you don't." He said, "But I have to say," and he said, "I think I speak for all the 90,000 people here." I said, "Go on. I think I know what you're going to say, but go ahead anyway." He said, "My favorite part of the podcast is
Hidden Gem Time."
Thank you, Lola. So you can't get any better than that, can you really? So what you got for us this time, Brian?
So I'm actually going to... I had loads of albums to pick for 1996, Matt, so I'm kind of cheating a little bit.
Okay.
I had a choice of two, and I'm going to go with an album by a band called Tonic. Have you ever heard of Tonic?
I have not.
Well,
is that related to the gin story we did earlier?
There you go.
It's all about subliminal marketing, isn't it, on this podcast?
Who thought the segue could go from Def Leppard with Gin and My Hidden Gem is a band called Tonic? You would think we've got 50 people sitting in a room working out all of the continuity for our show. It's just you and me.
And occasionally Kelvin, the social media guy.
Exactly. No, I'm going with a band, American rock band called Tonic. It's lovely when you're researching 1996 and you go, "Oh, wow, I've not listened to this album for ages." This is an album called Lemon Parade. It sold about 1.5 million copies in America. It got platinum status in America. It's probably cardboard status in the UK, and whether they've actually even played in the UK, I have no idea. But Lemon Parade, band called Tonic. It's fantastic. The opening 3 tracks, Open Up Your Eyes, Casual Affair, If You Could Only See. It's just a really strong album. 12 songs strong. They actually started in 1996, took a little bit of a break, as most bands do, Matt. Usually they work together for 10 years. So they were together from 93 to 2004, and then they got back together took a hiatus for a few years, and they're still going today. And they actually recorded, if you want to hear these tunes acoustically, they actually recorded in 2016 for the 20th anniversary an all-acoustic version of Lemon Parade. So my hidden gem, which is truly a hidden gem, is from the band Tonic, and the album is Lemon Parade. I hope you like it.
Very good.
There you go.
Never heard of Tonic.
I think you'll like them. They're in that American, Hootie and the Blowfish train. Yeah, they're really good. I like them.
Very good. So my hidden gem is a book. Not for the first time. As you know, I'm a very prolific reader. I get through at least 3 books a year, and if not more, if not 4 or 5. And this is no exception. A recent book that I read. It's by an author called Michael Hann, and it's called Denim and Leather: The Rise and Fall of the New Wave of British Heavy Metal, or NWOBHM. And it's excellent. It's well worth a read if you were there, as I was in the late 70s, early 80s, and kind of lived through NWOBHM. I think you'll enjoy it, but it doesn't really matter. You can enjoy it whatever era you grew up in. And it's the reason I like it so much. It's got a complete chapter dedicated to Diamond Head. Which in true Brian Maley fashion, when I got the book, I knew that was the case before I bought it. In true Brian Maley fashion, I went straight to that chapter and read it. And in fact, I've read that chapter twice because I read the whole book. It's also got a chapter on Venom. Now, Venom were one of those kind of very dark early death metal bands. They probably invented death or black metal. And hugely influential to the likes of Slayer and Metallica and basically the big four. But also, it does touch upon many of the things that as I say, if you were as I was, sort of 15, 16, 17 during that era, touches upon Neil Kay's heavy metal bandwagon, which I never went to, but that was notorious in North London for being the kind of hotbed of new bands and promoting the likes of Iron Maiden and Praying Mantis and many other of that NWOBHM era. Talks about the early gigs. Talks about Def Leppard in terms of their meteoric rise out of NWOBHM. Although, much like Maiden, they don't like to be associated with that movement, of course. Talks about the first Monsters of Rock festival and so on. It's a really good read. It's loads of interviews and sound bites from people who were there. Biff's on it, Steve Dawson from Saxon, Joe Elliott, Rick Savage, of course, the guys from Diamond Head as well. Sean Harris is even interviewed, which is quite phenomenal. He's very reclusive these days, the great singer from Diamond Head. So, without going on too much...
No, please, more Diamond Head.
Oh, thank you. Okay, fine, I will. That's my hidden gem for this week. Denim and Leather, The Rise and Fall of NWOBHM by Michael Hann. Check it out, boys and girls, and tell me what you think. Anyway, that's it for another podcast.
I shall see you at a festival quite soon.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
We're now getting into the summer of festivals. We've got Steelhouse and Stone Dead and Pearl Jam. It'll be a summer of music, which will be fabulous.
Indeed. But before we go, we want to say thanks to everyone for listening, of course.
Yep.
We really appreciate it. We always said that. Please get in touch on Facebook and, of course, on Twitter. What's our handle, Brian?
At FTAT Pod, Matthew.
Correct. Also, we're on Amazon. Please leave a review. We haven't had a review for a while. We've had some nice ones, but please, if you feel so inclined, leave a very pleasant review on Apple Podcasts, also on Spotify, and plenty of other mediums.
Exactly, and we might send you a nice mug.
That's right. We do have a few mugs. If you would like one, please drop us a line and tell us why you would like one, and we'll decide. It's not a competition, though, Brian.
No, it's not.
They're quite expensive, those mugs, aren't they? We haven't got a budget.
Yeah, we'll be okay. We've dropped enough hints to companies in this podcast. Somebody will pick it up. You know.
Just finally, I want to give a shout out to one of our listeners, Mr. Paul Whelan, who has recently been in hospital, having sadly torn his cruciate ligament. So, Paul, we wish you a happy and safe and quick recovery. It's been a tough couple of weeks for Paul. So, all the best, Paul.
All the best, Paul.
Yep. So that's it for another week, another month. Yeah, take care of yourself. All the best.
Bye now.
Bye.
For those about the pod, We Salute You is a Maylie Rogers media production.